radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. Today's Monday, July 2nd, 2018. 183 days into the new year. Just 182 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Happy World UFO Day. Yeah, happy World UFO Day. All right. Tonight, well, it is World UFO Day. And we welcome a very special guest. Joshua P. Warren is here. Now, we're going to cover all things UFOs, sightings, video, abductions, and disclosure. And his recent, that published today, Fox News. Fox News covered Joshua. And the headline reads, Time Warp Discovered Outside Las Vegas. And there you go. It's an article, well written, by the way, about Joshua and his device that he used called the DT meter, the differential time rate meter. We're going to discuss all of that. What a crazy day, right? Great story to break on World UFO Day with our very own Joshua P. Warren. So we're going to do everything UFO related. So buckle up, kiddies. It's going to be a great show. Now, tomorrow night, continuing our UFO theme for World UFO Day. Tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill is back with us, and we're going to talk about the recent Enki crop circles. That's right. Okay, now he's written an amazing article over at michaelleehill.net, and you can go check it out there. And he'll be with us tomorrow night. And it's always great when Michael joins us on Fade to Black. So we will see him tomorrow night. Wednesday and Thursday, we are taking off. That's right. It's the 4th of July. So we are going to spend it with family and friends. And it just so happens that it buttons right up to another weekend. And we're going to be able to take some much-needed rest and time off. Okay, so there you go. Well, except for July 4th, we won't be resting. And it'll take us right into our next broadcast will be Monday, July 9th. Okay, we'll be back. We will be back. And I already know. I'll announce it tomorrow. But I know who Monday's guest is, and I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this. So, yeah, Monday is going to be a very special night. All right, man. Sounds like I need to hit this River Moon coffee. Yeah, it's the best. All right, on Stellar. That's where you need to be. That's where you need to go. OnStellar.com, OnStellar.com. It is the next great social media platform. Today, and just use my referral code, Jimmy, when you go over there and sign up. I've got links you can use, too. It does everything automatically for you. Maybe I'll get that at the bottom of the hour, and I'll post that. But nonetheless, I did it yesterday on Twitter. I don't think I got around to it today. But today, Peter Tägtgren, Hypocrisy, right? Lead singer, guitar player for Hypocrisy, is in town, right? He flew in from Sweden, and I think he flew in from Berlin, actually. He just did a festival there. Anyway, so this morning, I wake up, boom, there's Peter. Hey, man, you want to stop by the studio today? Yeah. And he's producing the new album for Possessed. That's right, the death metal band out of San Francisco, an amazing band. Coined the phrase, they're the creators of death metal, right? That's the name of their first EP, Death Metal. Anyway, so he's producing them here in town, and he says, come on over. So what do? I jump in the car, and I go over to the studio, and it happens to be right here, right down the street. So I go in, and it's great, and I posted some pictures of Peter and I today. But nonetheless, this is the deal. So we started talking about On Stellar, and he got registered today. Yeah, Peter Tägtgren is over at On Stellar. So look him up. It's Tagtgren, but it's pronounced like with a K. That's how the Swedes do it. Tägtgren, even though it's Tagt. But send Peter a friend request. He's not on Stellar as I speak because he's cutting tracks in the studio with Possessed. Oh, man, so much fun to go into a drum room and see drums laid out with Neumanns. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Very nice Neve console, too, as well, that I got to pose in front of. I did touch the faders just to, and look, Peter and I talked about the EQ section of that console for a minute. But anyway, so, but we started talking about On Stellar. Now, Peter is over there, so go send Peter a friend request at OnStellar.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That is simple. Come and hang out with us. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox where we will be all night tonight, hanging out. Not only hanging out, but just engaging in incredible conversation. So there you go. Yep, Mark Tirana, there it is. Those are a couple of pretty good shots. Man, Peter's amazing. Look at that Neve console. Look at that bad boy. Yeah, they just don't make them like that anymore. So anyway, I got some more pictures. Maybe we'll post them a little bit later. And so there you go, onstellar.com. Hashtag F2B in Twitter is Fade to Black Questions. Any questions or comments during the show tonight, just hit me up right there. Let me get through a few things really quick. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Breaking news. That's right. Those 12 soccer players and their coach who ventured into a Thailand cave last month. As they entered, they left their bikes chained at the entrance. They expected to come back in a few hours, but they did not, nor the next day or for another week. But finally, today, after 9 days, all 13 team members were found safe. But rescuing them may prove to be pretty difficult because it's not clear if the rescuers will be able to drain the cave or if the divers are going to have to teach the boys how to dive to get them out. They're all weak. You know, they haven't had food and they've been in a cave for 9 days. How are they going to pull that off? I don't have any idea, but right now they are all safe. And technically, they've been rescued, and they must be very happy over there in Thailand. I thought it was going to be some really bad news. But there you go. All right. Next up, don't forget to sign up for our Soul Tech Conference. And, yes, okay. Quick text coming in from Joshua P. Warren. Dude, ready to go. Well, good. Okay. Soul Tech Gathering. It's up at East City Ranch this August 9th through the 12th. All you have to do is go to soultechgathering.com. Corey Good's going to be there as my special guest. We've got James Gilliland, Jason Quitt, Matthew Ryan, Michaela Sheldon, Teresa Yanaris, Holly Marie, Mary Gabrielle, John Lund, Dana Harvey, Billy Carson, Laura Cantu, and Christine Contini. That is a teacher's lineup right there. You're going to school. Come and hang out with us. We're going to have a great party there Sunday night. Food trucks, music, fun, sightings, Field of Dreams, sky watching. It's going to be an amazing event, and I just can't wait to see all of you up there. Hundreds of Fadernauts all at the same place at the same time up at East City Ranch. And then a week later, I'll be heading out to Dimensions of Disclosure. That's August 17th through the 19th in Loveland, Colorado, with Corey Good, David Wilcock, Emery Smith, Teresa Yanaris, Gerald O'Donnell, Jordan Sather, and 20 other speakers and presenters. All you have to do is go to dimensionsofdisclosure.com. That's going to be a great weekend out there. I can't wait for it. So 2 great events 2 weeks in a row. I wonder how many of you are going to both. Yeah. You know what? It's going to happen. I know. That's the way it goes, right? And I'll be out there at East City a week later in Colorado. It's going to be, hey, just hung out with you for a weekend. This is great to see you here. So how many of you are going to go to both? Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We have over 880 archive shows, custom apps, Apple, Android, all platforms, just $2 per month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on that podcast banner. You can also become a Fadernaut over in our membership section of the site where you get the bunker cam, commercial-free downloadable archives, and if you get the Game Changer, you'll get all of that cool Fade to Black gear, and you also get a private email to me. Just go to the membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Become a Fadernaut today. All right, and all of our sponsors here who are absolutely amazing, been with us forever, Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, Ancient Life Oil. Today, Peter Tackren in the studio goes, hey, man, did you bring me any River Moon Coffee, Fade to Black blend? I swear on all that I love. I go, really? Aren't you happy to see me? Yeah, but I was hoping you were going to bring that. I said, okay, man, I'll hook you up with some Fade to Black blend to take back to Sweden. Man, I want to take it. Okay. All right. River Moon Coffee, Ancient Life Oil, Sacred Skulls, New Mana Food Storage, and Bearing Optics. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Larry David is 70. Yeah, that's right. Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld. But, there's 2 versions of Larry. The original Curb Your Enthusiasm, hilarious. Loved it. New version, sucks. Unwatchable. So, Larry David makes the cut because of Seinfeld and the original version of Curb Your Enthusiasm. Our dead guy's birthday today is Jenny Rivera. 1969 to 2012, died at the age of 43. Jenny, American singer, songwriter, actress, television producer, spokesperson, philanthropist, entrepreneur, right? For her work as a banda singer and, ranchera music. Absolutely amazing. In life and death, several media outlets, including CNN, Billboard, Fox News, and the New York Times, have labeled her as the most important female figure and top-selling female artist in Mexican music, period. Billboard magazine named her the top Latin artist of 2013 and the best-selling Latin artist in 2013. But it was on December 9th, 2012, she was one of 5 passengers and 2 crew aboard a Learjet 25 when air traffic controllers lost contact as it was flying near Nuevo Leon. Rivera was finally buried on December 31st, 2012 at All Souls Cemetery in Long Beach, California. And that was a bad day. Jenny Rivera, happy birthday. All right. On this day in history, 1937, another aircraft was lost. That's right. The Lockheed aircraft carrying American aviator Amelia Earhart and navigator Frederick Noonan is reported missing near Howland Island in the Pacific. Yep. Did she survive? We'll never know. 1997, though, on this day in history, OTD, the documentary Men in Black, starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, is released. That's right. I said it. Documentary. Fader fact. In South Korea, listen to me. In South Korea, there is an emergency phone number, and it's phone number 113, that you can use to report spies. That's right. And there is your Fader fact. Tonight is World UFO Day. That's right. Tonight we welcome special guest Joshua P. Warren. We're going to cover all things UFO tonight. UFO sightings, video, abductions, and disclosure. And, of course, we're going to discuss his recent finding of a time warp outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, that was covered today by Fox News. Very interesting that this story broke today. We had Joshua booked for a while for this day, for World UFO Day. The story was released today. It's an interesting read. The links are up there in Twitter. We'll be talking to Joshua about that, too, as well. And now, tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill's going to be here, but there will be no shows Wednesday or Thursday because Rita and I are taking 2 days off for July 4th. That's right. You're going to have to deal with it. All right. Here we go. Okay. So over the weekend, on Saturday, to be exact, I was sitting in the bunker here working. I was literally working. And then I got a call from Tommy Danheiser, the producer with George Norrie over at Coast to Coast AM. And he says to me, he said, hey, could I go on the air? I was like, what? I didn't know what he was talking about, but I said yes. I knew that Coast to Coast wasn't on the air. I didn't know what was going on. It was like very strange. And then he called back about a minute later and asked me for a quick sound check. And I literally said testing. And he said, you got him, go, let's go. And then he just comes straight out and he goes, Jimmy, we are live right now with a panel with an audience of 150, more or less that's what he said. And so I respond back, hello, everyone. And then, there was some cheering and some applause. So I knew that we were live, and it was indeed in front of a panel, some kind of studio audience, live somewhere. And it turns out that this was George Norrie's panel at the ANP conference in Vancouver, the Architects of the New Paradigm conference, right? And then Tom immediately goes straight there. He says, and I'm quoting, he goes, when Tom DeLonge was on your show, what did he say that we should nuke E.T.? End quote. I was like, did he say what? And so I didn't remember anything about that. And I answered honestly and as truthful as I could, which is I answered, I don't remember Tom saying anything like that. Which I don't, right? And the call ended. So I don't know what's going on, right? I don't know. And Tom calls me back after I tweeted about the quick guest appearance, on Norrie's panel. I said, I would report about it today on the show. So I am now. And Tom called me back a bit later and explained what went on, which was that Grant Cameron, who was there at the AMP conference, who was on the panel, had said something like, and I'm quoting here from Tom, on Jimmy's show, DeLonge stated that we should nuke E.T., end quote. Well, Stephen Bassett was there, too. He's on the panel, and he took exception to Grant's claim, and, some back and forth went down, and George Norrie then says, Danheiser, get Church on the phone and we'll settle this. So Tom did, and I did. But then Twitter took over, as it should. And Mark Tarana from Australia posted the section of the DeLong interview on Fade to Black for everyone to hear for themselves what was actually said. So here it is. I'm going to play it for you in your in its entirety for you. And let's listen to this. This is Tom and I's exchange on Fade to Black. Here we go. Go off in the atmosphere like that.
Oh my God. It's like, you would think that like Jupiter was like crashing into our sky. You know, it's like, it's a big deal. And it's just unreal. Yeah. I think one of the everyone has to remember what happened once we started playing with nuclear weapons. UFOs showed up everywhere.
Every time.
And every time. And you got to think, why? Well, there's a big reason why. Because nuclear weapons will F up those little ankle biters bad. And they know it. And even they, as advanced as they are, they can't get away from it. And makes you really wonder why we did so many nuclear tests. It makes you really wonder why we did like 30,000 tests all over the world, in oceans, underground, up in the sky, and why we all have so many nuclear weapons. It's a big deal, you know. I'm not going to say it's all for this, but I was told something really, really, really important. The entire Cold War, we were working with the Soviet Union. We were together with them. And it was the one thing that kept the Cold War from going hot, was our relationship together on this issue. We weren't dumb and just went and lit up a nuke when we were in a standoff with Russia, you know, the Cuban Missile Crisis, where everyone's like, oh my God, we're all going to die. And we said, well, then we might as well do a nuke test. You know, it's like, no, it didn't work that way. They knew we did the nuke test. They were probably in the room with us when we did that test, because there was a small group of people on both sides that were trying to do exactly what they did, which was fly swat some bugs out of the sky.
I want to talk about Roswell, and not deeply. I just want to go to the factual side of the event itself. So there you go. That's the clip. And I do remember this. I remember the conversation, and my memory that it was only about nuclear testing in the Russians is what I recall. And that E.T. probably knew that the nuclear testing would mess with them in some way. That was the flavor of it, which I can agree with. At the end, Tom says something about the testing may have, and I'm quoting here, excuse me, that came out of nowhere. And I'm quoting here, fly swat some bugs out of the sky. Well, that's it. And there wasn't any mention by Tom saying that we should nuke E.T. or use our weapons against E.T. That's not what he said. I can understand how over time some may have stretched this out into something that it is not. And like that old game of telephone, you know, that we used to play as kids after, you know, listening to Tom's segment a few times, there is no way that Grant Cameron would think this is the opposite of what Tom stated. You know, I don't think Grant actually listened to the interview, or maybe he did, but he forgot, and then somebody else suggested something to him, and they had heard it from somebody else. Somebody else told them what was said, and by the time it got back around to Grant, it's Tom DeLonge says we should nuke E.T. Okay, I clearly think that this is not the case here. And somebody probably just told Grant that this is what was said. And as with anything, you have to check and vet everything yourself before you go and quote or say something in public. You're going to get caught every time. It's just the way that it is. And this, you know, I appreciate Stephen Bassett taking exception to it, but I doubt Bassett listened to the show. Maybe he has now. But there it is, and there's the clip. And I am probably going to post a little video about this on YouTube and get it out there to clear all of this up so everybody can go and listen to this very specific clip and you can hear what was said. Now, knowing all of that, I have been very vocal about some issues with TTSA and the way that the videos were presented and other things. Okay, so that's that part. But this stands completely alone from this situation here. And in this case, I've listened to it. I'm going to back up Tom and what he said. He did not say we should nuke E.T. That's not what he said. This was about nuclear testing and the Russians and an ET presence and the fact that there may have been less ETs during nuclear testing for whatever reason. But that is it. So I'm just going to go on the record and say in this case that Tom was right. And also, I listened to this many times now, dozens since this thing went down. And I got to say, if you go back and you listen to Tom, he sounds bright and engaged here. And that's not the way I remember that interview. I remember that interview being fun. We talked music and we talked about all kinds of aspects about ET and what it possibly could be. And we jumped into a lot of religious things. I remember all of that. But I also remember the interview being a bit more loose. Here, Tom is engaged. He is right there. He's spot on. And I think what he said made a lot of sense. Also, I think there was a mistake made. I think he said that there were 30,000 nuclear tests. I don't think there was that many. I think there was 2,000. I could be wrong. Can somebody look that up? I want to see that in Twitter really quick. Somebody help me out. And how many nuclear tests have there been in the history of the world? My memory says 2,000, and he says 30,000 there. He probably just misspoke. And I don't want this to get into something that it is not. But there you go, and I wanted to clear the air for everybody so you can actually hear, not only on the show live, but forever in YouTube and in our archives, what was actually said. And there you go. Grant also has a show on KGRA, and hopefully he'll be able to go there and clear this up too as well, because I think he is a great researcher. And I think this was all a game of telephone and a misunderstanding all the way around. That's my take. There's the official recording right there. And now I think we can move on. With that, I'm going to get out of here because tonight is the evening of World UFO Day. All right, World UFO Day. Our guest tonight is Joshua P. Warren. And if you haven't seen it yet, you need to go and check out the story right there released today by Fox News about Joshua's discovery of a time warp outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. With that, this is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Joshua P. Warren. Tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill. Wednesday and Thursday, we're taking those days off. And there you go. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be back with Joshua P. Warren right after this short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, here we go. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and it is World UFO Day. You gotta love that. This segment of Fade to Black is proudly brought to you by Life Change Tea. Life Change Tea. Just go to the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com, click, and use the promo code FADER, F-A-D-E-R. You're gonna get free shipping. Tonight, it is Joshua P. Warren. He's an investigator, pioneers the amazing relationship between the mind, energy, matter, and strange phenomena. He owns the Asheville Mystery Museum and Laboratory in North Carolina and the Bermuda Triangle Research Base in Puerto Rico. He's the author of over 20 best-selling books, and he's also appeared on History, Discovery, Nat Geo, Animal Planet, SyFy, TLC, and starred on Travel Channel series Paranormal Paparazzi. Travels the world investigating mysterious phenomena, and has even made the cover of a science journal back in 2004 for lab experiments regarding energy fields in nature related to the Brown Mountain Lights. Tonight is World UFO Day. That kind of sounds weird. Tonight is World UFO Night, and we're going to discuss every side of the UFO question, including abduction, sightings, contact, and disclosure, and of course, the Fox News story that broke today, and that is very interesting. We're going to discuss that too. I'd like to welcome back to Fade to Black, Joshua P. Warren. Joshua, you've had a busy day, my friend.
Oh, I'm praying honestly that I can keep my voice, because it's been a busy past 7 days. I'm very honored to be on the program with you, but seriously, I've gotten almost no sleep because for the past almost 7 days, I have been receiving calls from media around the clock. Just last night, I was talking to 2 production companies in London who want to do a piece with me, and that was 3 o'clock in the morning my time, and then I got up and did 3 interviews today. So forgive me if I don't sound as powerful on the air as I'd like. I'll do my best.
You know what's great, Joshua, is when you have that lack of sleep and you go into that zone, that's when I'm going to get the best out of you. That's all I got to say.
Oh, great.
So let's put the gloves on, man, and get ready. We're going to have some fun tonight. So it's World UFO Day, and this story broke. You and I had all kinds of plans about discussing, everything UFO related. This story breaks today with Fox, and I read through it. I'm like, holy crap, right? Okay, Joshua once again did it. So I do want to discuss that in depth. And then I do want to take some time to discuss a couple of years ago on the program, you revealed the UFO over the airport in Puerto Rico. And we aired that, for the first time on the show. And when we played that video, and I watched, it was one thing to watch it go over the airport, but it was a whole other thing to watch it go in and out of the water. That just absolutely freaked me out. But this is what I find interesting about that video. Since December, as the world knows, we've had 3 videos surfaced. Well, they've been out on the web for a while, but they certainly surfaced through the New York Times and the mass media of these 3 gun camera shots. And as cool as they are, and they show whatever they show, they are nothing compared to that video from Puerto Rico. And I want to go back and revisit the importance of that. And how do you feel now when you have seen, those 3 recent videos that have been put out there, and comparing that to what happened over in Puerto Rico? To me, it's apples and oranges.
I couldn't agree more. I have been saying for months now that I'm happy that the Pentagon finally admitted that they're back engineering UFO debris, and they're doing it, of course, right here in the Las Vegas area, which is where I'm joining you from.
Right.
And of course, I was happy that they put some footage out, but it's like there still is truly a blind eye being turned to the astounding significance of that footage, and not just the footage itself, but also the 162-page report that was done by a group of scientists who really broke that down. And, I can tell you once again that I was in Puerto Rico when that footage was captured, and there was a ruckus that spread all across the island because something like that on an island where everybody to some degree may kind of know each other, it spreads like wildfire. And it was pretty obvious that nobody knew what that was. And there is still no good explanation for what it was. And I find that it's interesting that we have that and many other kinds of UFO incidents that have occurred around Puerto Rico leading up to the hurricane and even after the hurricane that are just not being reported. And so it's very strange to me as well.
Well, I am going to take another look at that footage, and I'm going to, quite frankly, I'm just going to re-release the story. Right? Mm-hmm. I think the media needs to go back. As much as they're playing those other 3 videos, which again they're okay. It's not like they're bad or great. I think they're like right in the middle. But that footage over Puerto Rico is friggin' mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing, and they should be showing that video and asking questions, and they are not. And I'm frustrated with it.
Well, it makes you wonder about a couple of things. Number one, if the amount of disclosure was still being measured very, very carefully, meaning that some of the best evidence is still not being acknowledged. And secondly, if it's because that this was around an airport that had commercial planes with civilians, and by admitting that they could not control or even define what this thing was, which was demonstrating this incredible technical skill that's truly out of this world, right around a place where you have a bunch of vulnerable people, they may be afraid that actually would frighten the public and cause too much outrage. That's the only way that I can look at this logically, that it's one thing to say, well, here's an engagement that happened around an aircraft carrier out in the middle of the ocean or whatever, but it's another thing to say, look how vulnerable an airport is, where all of our Homeland Security guys, all they can do is just sit there and document it, and that's all. They don't know what they're doing with it.
Yeah, and you're being kind, actually. You just said around airport. That thing flew straight up the middle of the runway. And not only, and you have to think of in terms of ET, intelligence looks for other intelligence. So, that's what we do here as humans. And if you were ET, what would you do? You know what? How about cruise right up the middle of a runway? Let's go check out the other tech. And that's exactly what happened. The little dive into the ocean, well, 2 dives, was an extraordinary ending to a pretty amazing video.
Yeah, and of course, this thing, it was around at least 6 feet in diameter. It was traveling about 120 miles per hour. It did not have any wings or any rotors or any visible means of propulsion. It was traveling against the wind in many, many cases. It was being documented with thermal cameras that showed us that it had, an extraordinary temperature. This is not some kind of balloon or some object like that. And then it sort of shapeshifts as well. And the object then, of course, when it dips into the water, you can see it continuing to travel just below the surface of the water, because you're seeing this with the thermal camera. And so you see this thing, inches below the surface of the water, zipping just below. And then when it emerges, now it's joined by this second object, and they both are dipping in and out. And then finally they disappear at the same time into the ocean, and the camera is still searching for them. And because this is authentic footage, nobody discounts the authenticity of the footage, because this is thermal footage that showed us a lot more information, a lot more data than just something that's optically based. And because that, this was documented with such great precision, to me, this is perhaps the most compelling evidence of all that we have these things flying around us which we cannot explain. And so it is perplexing to me, because over the years I have done everything I can to go out and study what different types of drones and balloons and gliders and all that stuff look like. And this thing, whatever it was not one of those, in my opinion.
The other part of the footage, which, again, it's about provenance, right, and chain of command, wasn't this shot by the Department of Homeland Security?
Yes, it was. And in fact, the scientists who studied this were even able to break it right down to the kind of camera that was used, the kind of airplane that was used, the kind of attachment. We know a great deal of technical information, and all of this was freely released as a PDF to the general public, into the public domain. And so at any point, you can still go to my website, joshuapwarren.com, and click the news section, and you'll see a link there to OUFOs, or you can click a section called Gallery of the Strange, and you'll see the link to OUFOs. And when you click that, you can see the footage, you can see my video report on it, you can read my release on it, and you can read that 162-page PDF. And I don't know what more could be done
in order to verify and validate that this is truly something extraordinary. It's an exotic technology. It came right into our restricted airspace without any care or consideration of our retaliation or our reaction. And I think that, again, this is the only sort of possible explanation for why this has been more dismissed, because it truly illustrates our vulnerabilities.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And before we get to the time warp, which, man, okay, we're going to spend some time on that. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you, where do you think we are now in these days of disclosure? It's been a pretty extraordinary ride over the last 7 months, but it seems like, to me, from where I'm standing or sitting, that it is kind of tapered off a little bit, and I thought that we could have ridden this wave a little bit better. Where do you think we are?
Well, I, for one thing, am amazed at how few people even still know about that information being released. I mean, I encounter people every day, and I mention, well, the Pentagon disclosed blah, 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 and they're like, huh, no, what? And I have to fill them in best I can. And because even the mainstream media did not do a really fantastic job of elevating that to the level of national discussion that it deserves. And so that tells you something just about, I guess, how still, unfortunately, dismissive many members of the mainstream media are for one reason or another. But my feeling is that there is no logical case to be made for why that the government at any point should ever actually release all of their secrets. I just can't I can't understand a scenario in which they would think that's a good idea. But I believe there will be gradual instances where people are able to slip outside the boundaries of what they're supposed to talk about and very quickly get something out there in the media. And so we will get little bits and pieces like this and little glimpses. But I don't think that we're ever going to have a full disclosure unless and until these beings themselves decide to make themselves known, because they obviously are holding the cards here. Then when it comes to that, I also can't see a good reason why they would want to do that either. The aliens, so to speak. I mean, as I've said before, when I go hiking through the woods, I'm not, sort of knocking on the bushes trying to prove to every squirrel and rabbit that humans exist. It doesn't matter to me if those animals know that. In fact, on the contrary, I usually try not to disturb them. And so if we are indeed looking at visitations here from an advanced species, whether they be interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or both, then I can say that, well, I don't think that the people are going to talk about it. And I don't think that the extraterrestrials themselves have any clear motivation that I can see to come out with it. And so we probably have to just sort of make up our minds with what's already available out there and what continues to seep out.
Why do you think the Pentagon, what appears that the Pentagon suddenly was freeing up, this attitude, not only to the UFO community, but back to the rest of the world, that they were willing to discuss this situation? Why would they choose to do that now?
Well, I think it's really interesting that President Trump just announced the formation of the Space Force.
Right.
And so if you look at that in retrospect, you might think that they weren't sure what the reaction would be, and that they thought, let's just do a little release to indicate that there's some weird stuff flying around in outer space that comes down once in a while, and just see if that's going to inspire people to get behind this idea of a space force. Because I guarantee you, if the president is talking about creating a space force now, well, something like that has already existed for a long time.
Sure.
And so that to me is probably the most telling and insightful aspect of this. That at the time, we're scratching our heads like, why would they do this other than, you have some disgruntled whistleblower types who want to get some credit for their work. But now that we have this space force being developed, it may have been an experiment to see if that would help the people support it.
What do you think ultimately the Space Force, what do you envision it as? Because I agree with you. There's been something going on up there secretly and covertly for a very long time. There's no reason to disclose that kind of stuff to the world. But what do you think ultimately the Space Force is actually going to be?
Well, I mean, you can say from just the most, I guess, strict and practical point of view that it's just an attempt to be able to, control a higher level of altitude when it comes to people being able to use spy satellites and shoot off rockets and that sort of thing. But I feel that probably on a more conspiratorial level, I have seen over the years very strange things flying around at night using third-generation night vision goggles that I know are not satellites. They're not space junk. I mean, those things you can pretty easily rule out after a while. And sometimes it looks like they're interacting with each other as if they're being controlled. And so it may be that we already have some spaceships up there with your, Buck Rogers types running around and occasionally getting into scuffles. But I am open to the idea, and this is one that people would say is the wackiest of all, but I'm open to the idea that we do work with some of these beings, and that there may actually be some type of coalition, if you will, or an attempt at a coalition in outer space where we try to head off some of these spacecraft from other worlds that are coming here without being properly licensed, sort of Men in Black style. And of course, there has been a lot of talk about this for decades now, especially that Eisenhower may have had some arrangement made with a downed ET. Look, I'm open to that possibility, and what I find is sort of refreshing about all this is that, well, not too long ago, just pretty much when we were kids, the mainstream scientists would just chuckle and blow off the idea that there are even aliens out there. Now, most of your mainstream scientists say, well, odds are, yeah, they're out there. There's a lot of space. There's an unimaginable amount of space. There are a lot of rocks and planets and stars, and that it would be more unlikely that we're the only thing. And so we are seeing this gradual shift toward the idea that there may be intelligence out there, and I think that a lot of these military folks are the ones who would have obviously encountered that first of all on the front lines.
When I think about the Space Force, as soon as it was mentioned, I couldn't help but think of the movie Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
Right? No, I'm being serious, too. But that's me. But you know what I found really strange? I just kind of sat back, Joshua, and thought, you know what? I'm not the only one thinking this. The hundreds of millions of people around the world that saw that press conference thought the exact same thing, too. Force, a sixth branch of the military, all the other branches are weaponized. Why wouldn't the Space Force too? And you can't help but think about a movie like Starship Troopers, that is actually what's going on. Is that crazy thinking, or quite possibly are we on the target with that kind of thought?
Well, no, I think it makes logical sense if you consider that the ultimate goal of humankind is to survive long enough to possibly become a Type 4 civilization on the Kardashev scale. So to just refresh the listeners, I mean, a Type 1 civilization would be a planet that's able to take full advantage of all of its resources and use them harmoniously. And then a Type 2 is one that would expand out to do the same thing, taking full advantage of the solar system. And then Type 3 is when you would expand to do that in your galaxy. And then Type 4 is where you travel beyond your galaxy to other galaxies and star systems, and you start taking their resources. And we're not even a Type 1. We are still a Type 0 here on this planet, and we're a long way from becoming a Type 1. But I think that is the ultimate goal. And So there are probably efforts that are being put in place already to prepare us to start moving out there when we're ready. And of course, then there always is the backup plan that the elite may have in order to save themselves by getting off of this planet if something calamitous happens. And so, there are a number of reasons that we might want to have a force that could essentially, if nothing else, escort us to another place if things go awry here on Earth.
Now, we're going to head to a break in 3 minutes, so I'll ask a simple question. When the world gets that question answered about ET contact and are we alone in the universe, when the world gets the answer, not our community, not Joshua P. Warren, but the world, how do you think it's going to happen?
Well, for one thing, we still have people in this world who believe the planet is flat. So, you're never going to get a world in which every single person agrees on that. But I think that it's unfortunate that we have become a very paranoid society. And that's why we see so much negativity being focused on in the media. It's scaremongering. It's trying to control people, and it works, which is why they perpetuate it. And so I think that, I used to believe that the whole War of the Worlds scenario where everybody freaked out was not giving us due credit. But the longer I live and the more people I meet, I got to be honest with you, Jimmy, I still think there are a lot of people who are going to freak out and say, these are demons, this is the end times, this is Armageddon, and they're not going to be able to function in an ordinary capacity and respect the authority of humans because now they're just going to look to the authority of these ET.
Well, and although I tend to agree with that, I really do. But then the other part is with all of the mass media coverage that we had back on December 16th, we didn't have anarchy in the streets. The Vatican didn't collapse. The New York Stock Exchange probably grew that day, and the world didn't fall apart. And I felt pretty good about that.
Well, but a lot of people still are not willing to make that leap, that this is actually evidence of extraterrestrials. They'd rather think that this is some kind of secret man-made technology. It's the Russians or the North Koreans or whoever. Now, we know that that is not technologically feasible. But if a lot of people say, if you're going to look at Occam's razor and what's most likely,
right,
it's more likely that it's that than ET.
I can't argue with that. Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight on this beautiful World UFO Day, Joshua P. Warren. Now, when we come back, we're going to go straight to it. We're going to talk about this Fox News article today about Joshua's discovery right outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. Josh, stay right there, man. I can't wait to talk about this. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back with Joshua P. Warren. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com. dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Happy UFO Day, World UFO Day. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black, and this segment of the show is proudly brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Best coffee in the world. Just go to the banners at jimmychurchradio.com. Click. Use the promo code F2B blend. You will get 15% off of your order today. Our guest tonight is Joshua P. Warren. And Joshua, on this World UFO Day, that's an incredible story that was broke by Fox, and it came. Did it come via Mysterious Universe?
No, that story was originally covered by the local Fox affiliate, Fox 5, here in Las Vegas, and then over the past 6 days, it has been taking off. It's been everywhere. It made Newsweek. It made Drudge, Inside Edition, CBS Los Angeles, Reddit. I mean, that's why I was saying at the beginning of the show that over the past 6 days that I have just been slammed, and that's why that today it appearing on the main page of Fox News is just the latest distribution. And so I don't know where it's going to continue going, but it really took me by surprise. I mean, I thought people would be interested in this, but the reaction has really been unexpected.
Now, so for those that haven't read the story, and you're right, by the way, so today when I read the Fox story and I go and I do my vetting, I just want to see how the legs are doing, right? And it's everywhere, man. And I thought, oh, geez, Joshua's got to be losing his mind. And he told me this a few days ago, and it just took off, man. And I'm excited that the world wants to know about this. Now, we kind of got to start with the basics. What happened? What are we talking about? And what is the DT meter?
Yeah, and this actually does tie in very nicely with UFOs as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so, I spend a good deal of time here in Las Vegas. Last year I was here shooting a television program, and then this year I was back shooting another TV show, and I produced an event here. And so I finally decided to just go ahead and get a condo here so that I can easily spend part of my time here every year. And I had never been to Area 51, and so I was looking for an opportunity to go up there. And it was just fortuitous for me to be contacted by a Silicon Valley engineer named Ronald Heath, who was excited to tell me about a new meter that he had created. Now, Ron Heath, as it turns out, he'd emailed me on a number of occasions here and there over the years. He's a great technician, and he has developed all kinds of interesting electronic circuits. But he has always been fascinated with the X-Files. And there is this one episode in particular, he said, that he thought was cool, where Mulder takes out a stopwatch and he places it by his car, and then he walks to a UFO hotspot with a second stopwatch, and then later he compares the two to see if there's any difference between them. The idea being that if these UFOs in the area might be using some gravity warping technology, then that should affect the flow of time to some degree. And so he was looking for a user-friendly device that would allow people to pretty much replicate that. And so he made what's called the differential time rate meter, or DT meter. And it's actually quite simple to use. On one end, you have the meter, which has got a digital display that says 0.00000. And then that is hooked to a 100-foot cable. And on the end of the cable is a sensor that is constantly sending a signal back to the meter. And that signal is always supposed to get there at the same rate of time at the same place. And in fact, the only way that should deviate is if something major happened, like a black hole approached Earth or something along those lines. So he asked me if I would like to test this thing out, because he has had two of them running for months, logging their data 24 hours a day in California, and he's never recorded one anomaly.
One deviation.
Not once. And in fact, he kind of felt like he had created a meter that's supposed to really detect nothing. You know, it's always supposed to give a normal zero reading. And it's got a good margin of error built into it as well. So I got a hold of this thing and I became fascinated with it. And I thought, well, you know, this may be a cool thing for me to take to Area 51. I'm the first investigator who's going to have the opportunity to use this in the field. And of course, a couple of years ago, I was a speaker at the International UFO Congress, where Bob Lazar spoke on stage. And of course, he's a controversial character, but Bob Lazar, he stated that when he was working at Area 51, he was tasked with back engineering these engines that would manipulate gravity and time. That, for example, you could take one engine that wasn't much bigger than a basketball, and you could put a candle next to it, and the candle flame would freeze in midair. The flickering would stop, that sort of thing. So I thought, well, this meter is so sensitive. Perhaps if I make a trip hundreds of miles north up to Area 51 and stop occasionally along the way to take readings, I can compare and see if you start to get anything weird as you get closer to Area 51. So I frankly had envisioned that it would be normal, and then maybe the farther north I got, suddenly something would, I'd get a deviation. That's what I was thinking.
Well, let me jump in, because this is what I know what you just stated, but what were your honest expectations?
Well, I know that, as he was telling me, the guy who built it himself was telling me, it's not supposed to pick up any type of anomaly. So if I had to bet on it, and I am a gambling man, then I would have bet that it's not going to show anything, because I had already tested it on a number of occasions right within my neighborhood in Las Vegas. And it always worked very reliably. It's easy to calibrate. I'd never gotten one single weird reading, so I wasn't expecting that. And if anything, I thought there was a better chance that I would go up to Area 51 with night vision goggles and maybe see something weird flying around.
Right.
So my wife and I, it was just the two of us, we took a trip to Area 51 and we stayed overnight. For those who aren't familiar with the lay of the land, there's the town of Rachel up there where you have the little alien, and you can go past that. The town of Rachel is the closest one to what they call Area 51, but then there's another town along the way called Alamo where we decided to stay. It's a little closer to civilization for the night. But anyway, point is, on the way up there and back, I was taking readings, and the only place that I got anything unusual was at this sort of nondescript spot on the side of the road about 20 miles north of Vegas between I-15 and Route 93. And in fact, heading north, we would have pulled over to take a measurement sooner, but they were doing road construction and there were traffic cones on the side of the road, and so that was creating an obstacle for us for a ways. So as soon as we had a clearing, we pulled over on the side of the road. I took out a bunch of instruments. I had Geiger counters and tri-field natural EM meters and such, and everything was normal. So yeah, we stretched this coil out, and all of a sudden, boom, I get this reading showing that according to this meter, time has actually slowed down by 20 microseconds. Now, what that means is that if you take a second and you split it into 100,000 pieces, one of those little slices is a microsecond. And so the meter showed that time had actually slowed for 20 microseconds. I was like, what? I mean, it was immediately astounding because I'd never seen it do anything else, and I never saw it ever do anything else like that. So I took a note of that, of course, and I recorded everything. And then when I got back, I contacted Ron Heath, and he flipped out. He couldn't believe it. I mean, he said, I've been running these things for months, and I've never seen anything like that. And so it just so happens that spot in the desert where I'd gotten this reading is one of the most prominent UFO hotspots around Las Vegas, where some of the most extraordinary lights are filmed at night. And if you want to see some examples of this, if you go to my website, joshuapwarren.com, you can click a link at the top to my report on this. I did a video report just like I did with the OUFOs, and I actually show some of the UFO footage that has been captured in this same area. And I thought to myself, well, wow, wouldn't it be something if as we continue this, and this is the very first step, by the way, because there are people who are criticizing me saying, well, come on, you just have one point of data. Well, that's true, but that's how you start the investigation. I am now going to travel all around this area, seeing if there are other anomalies which might also coincide with places where people are seeing UFOs, and for that matter, having any kind of paranormal experience, because I have believed for many years that time is an integral component to understanding these strange phenomena. In fact, 10 years ago, I wrote a book called The Secret Wisdom of Kukulkan, in which I posited something called the paratemporal loop hypothesis, which sort of looked at the relationship between time and UFOs and cryptids and ghosts and ESP and all that stuff. So basically, I put this little report together mainly to keep my audience informed, because I have a daily podcast that I do just on my website. I have a good deal of listeners, and I keep them informed. And so I put it together mainly to show them what happened. And then I got contacted by the news, because they'd heard me on Coast to Coast AM mention that I was going to do some experiments in the area. And I shared it with them. They wanted to go back out to the spot. I showed them exactly what I did. And they put this nice segment together, and then all of a sudden, boom, that thing just went all over the world. And that's why I'm saying that I think that this is how any kind of disclosure that happens will probably happen, because nowadays it is so easy, if a story has got some real legs, for it to blow up and go all over the planet.
Now, 20 microseconds, two things come to mind. One is, it doesn't sound like much. The other side of it is, holy crap, that's a ginormous amount of time, right? In a scientific sense. What do you think is going on?
Well, I am going to predict, for what it's worth, that we really have many more of these little anomalies around Earth than we even think we do. One of the reasons I say that is because up until now, most people have not had access to a user-friendly device that they can take out to do measurements. Now that this device exists and people are going to start running around and measuring things, I think we're going to find all kinds of little anomalies around planet Earth. And that shouldn't be that surprising, because NASA has documented this. I mean, in 2004, they had a project called Gravity Probe B, where they went around the Earth and they were measuring the curvature of space-time around the Earth. And, of course, it's uneven. I mean, that's why if you go to Google and you type in NASA gravity map, you'll see these maps that are color-coded in red and blue. And that's because some places are weaker on Earth, that have a weaker gravitational field. They're coded in blue. Some places are stronger, which are coded in red or orange. And what you tend to find is that places where you have a weaker gravitational field, we have more reports of paranormal activity. So again, this is not completely earth-shattering, the idea that space and time is inconsistent around planet Earth. It's just weird to think that you can go to one spot and in a moment, boom, something happens that changes the flow of time. And I guess you could say, technically speaking, even though 20 microseconds is a very, very small period of time, I think you could say that we sort of traveled back in time for 20 microseconds.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. There's no other way to explain it. And the fact is very simple. It should not happen. It's really that simple.
Yeah, that's right. It should not happen. Again, this device is, it's a well-made device. It's been calibrated. Is it possible that there's some problem with the device? Well, certainly anything's possible. I mean, that's why we continue doing these experiments. But what I can tell you for now is that it has always behaved exactly as it ought to. And so for this to happen at this spot where people are seeing UFOs makes me think one of two things is going on. Either there is some kind of technology that is exotic, that's being at least experimented with or something like that in that particular area, north of Vegas and on the way to Area 51, which could create this. Or there are UFOs zipping by occasionally that give you a little blip, or that this is just a natural property of planet Earth, and that you have places like the Bermuda Triangle, you have places like Brown Mountain, where the Brown Mountain lights are seen in western North Carolina, where these lights will often appear at certain times that give you the impression you might be glimpsing or peering into another dimension. And so perhaps when this sort of wavering occurs, it's almost like a space-time storm that might occur once in a while on planet Earth. It has its own form of energy, and you're able to get a glimpse of that.
Well, and then you have other special sites, of course, like Joshua Tree or ESETI Ranch or the Giza Plateau, Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, where there might be something interesting going on too as well. Do you plan on traveling to these other special sites?
Oh, I certainly do. In fact, that's
Puerto Rico. You got Puerto Rico, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I now can essentially go back and revisit all of these places that I've studied throughout my career, if you want to call it that, as a paranormal investigator. And that's really exciting because you get to the point sometimes where you say, well, I only have so many tools to work with. You got your electromagnetic field meters, your electrostatic stuff, your Geiger counters, you've got your infrared cameras, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody kind of has access to the same stuff. But now we have something new that we can take out, that we can experiment with. And this is all experimental, but the very fact that there's been this just giant explosion of international interest, and I mean, this has been covered in China and Russia and all over the place, it shows you that people may be a little wishy-washy or perhaps even a little burned out when it comes to UFOs and ghosts and things like that, because they get fatigued, they get frustrated that they're not being told more, and they move on. But this is something that captures a lot of people's imaginations, whether they be mainstream scientists or they just be hobbyists and amateur explorers, because everybody realizes that this is one of the most extraordinary aspects of reality that Einstein helped to introduce us to over 100 years ago. And at first everybody thought he was wacko, and it turns out they were able to prove again and again experimentally that he was correct. So now we're realizing, okay, there's something to this idea that time is a flexible thing, and that's a weird concept, and that might give us some answers to some of these questions by looking at them from a different and new perspective.
Were you able to repeat? I want to go back actually to what you said. It could be maybe the meter misfired. Did you go up the road and it ran correctly? And did you come back to point, you're calling it Vista, right? I think.
Yeah, the Vegas Interstate Time Anomaly.
Yeah. So did you test and confirm, retest?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I tested it over and over on the way there and back. And then again, when I went back with the television news crew, and everything was normal. So it just goes to show that, this was truly an anomaly. Now, I believe that because the meter worked so well in every other instance, not just mine, but the others that exist in California, and because that we already know, thanks to scientists at NASA and some of the work by Einstein and Stephen Hawking, that time is flexible, then it's not really that shocking for me to think that this was how it's being presented in the media. This was, in fact, a documentation of a time anomaly. And, the first step in the scientific method is to observe. And so this is my first opportunity to go out and collect some data, but I'm going to continue doing that.
There was years and years ago on the show, I had a caller that told us a story on vacation. I'll tell you the very, very abridged version of it. So they go out, they're at a viewpoint where there's a sign in front of them, and she's reading the sign, Park Service. At this point, in 1860, there was something that happened across this river, and she says while she was standing there, she looks across the river and she sees a reenactment going on. Covered wagons, a couple of campfires, some cooking, some families, some things, some horses, right? And she thought, wow, that's so cool. They're reenacting what I'm reading on this point, right? On this play, on this, what do you call it? A stand. And very cool. So she turns around to go get her family and to, show them what's going on across the river, this reenactment. The family comes back. She looks, it's gone. Right? It's gone.
Yeah.
The covered wagons are gone. The campfires are gone. The smoke is gone. The horses are gone. And it was just a minute later. Could this be evidence of what you have discovered?
Oh, I believe so, because, when I started out writing books, many of my books were about ghosts, including a book I published called How to Hunt Ghosts in 2003. It was a Simon & Schuster publication, and I broke down different types of ghosts. And one of them is associated with time warps, time slips, because, it's one thing if someone sees what appears to be a person or an apparition that's out of its place in time. It's another thing to see an entire setting. So that is to say, instead of seeing the creepy specter standing in the back bedroom, you walk in and the entire bedroom looks different as it did in the 1800s for a second. And there may even be an occasion where the person that you're looking at appears to see you as well. And so this is indeed a very interesting type of anomaly. In fact, I've talked to a number of people who have personally experienced this. And it may be that we have to accept that the human brain, which is the most mysterious thing that we can comprehend, I guess, is really the product of a bunch of subatomic particles sort of firing and crackling all the time. And those tiny little particles, they can be influenced by some of the smallest, most subtle forces. And so it's, you take something like 20 microseconds, that doesn't sound like much, but it might be a gigantic shift in how the brain is able to perceive things for 5 seconds. And so what we have to look at here is not only the idea that the environment might be physically affected and changed by the presence of these time anomalies, but also that it may change the way we are able to perceive reality itself. and therefore you end up with people seeing ghosts that are out of place and time along with the entire setting, because they're literally looking back through a window or a gateway into the past.
Could it be some type of natural recording?
Yeah, I think that there's a very good chance that the environment actually does naturally record everything that happens. And if we had the opportunity to sort of play that back, then wow, that would be astounding, because we would be able to observe history as it actually occurred, at very least on this particular timeline. And so that's actually one of the more technical goals of ghost research, is to think that we might be able to eventually find a way to be able to look back in time. And so that's where you get the idea of imprints and residuals. And that also makes you think about, the concept that perhaps all of the environment around us is composed of little blocks that are almost like RFID chips that can be influenced by whatever energy happens to manifest around them.
Right.
And that at certain times, under certain circumstances, those RFID chips can send that signal back. And some people are perhaps better at observing that. But certainly this applies directly to ghostly phenomena, and it applies very easily to UFOs, where you have the situation where a UFO appears over a car and the car stops, and then the UFO flies away and the car is running again, didn't have to turn the ignition. It's as if time stopped. Or with cryptids, people saying a cryptid just sort of vanishes in the middle of the path. Well, if that cryptid changed its position in space and space-time are related, well, now it's manipulating time or somehow being influenced by time. And psychic phenomena, people are often seeing what's happened in the past or the future with precognition or postcognition. And so time is an integral component here that seems to be distributed among all of these different types of things that we consider the paranormal, the mysterious, the unexplained.
We've got 1 minute before the break, and this is what I'm imagining here in this time warp zone, in this circle where you were at Vista, that if you saw it shift just enough that maybe you would see a double of yourself. I mean, just, just slightly behind you and your wife. And maybe you would hear something too as well, a doubling effect, even though it's 20 microseconds. But what if you hit something even broader than that you would be seeing double?
Well, and that is certainly possible. And it has also been reported throughout history as another type of ghostly manifestation. There was one incident in, I believe, the 1800s in which an entire classroom of kids started squealing because they were watching the teacher write something on the chalkboard at the head of the class, and suddenly the teacher split into two ladies doing the identical thing side by side, and then merged back into one person. So you have that. You also could call that similar to a doppelganger type effect.
Right.
But definitely you might be able to observe yourself from another point in time, and that's pretty freaky stuff.
Man, I want to go out with you. We need to go and find one of these points. I am so there, Joshua. Our guest tonight on this World UFO Day is Joshua P. Warren. More with Joshua right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurry. hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight on this World UFO Day is Joshua P. Warren. This segment of the broadcast brought to you by Numana, emergency food for you and your family, made in America, GMO-free. Every order over $100 will get you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt by yours truly. Just click on the Numana banner right there at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Promo code is Jimmy. Let's get back to Joshua. Joshua, on this World UFO Day, we've got so many different aspects of the UFO question that I think science needs to apply themselves to, and which they want to back off. I agree with you that today we understand how infested this galaxy is of ours and the universe, with planets, with stars, that we didn't even understand this as little as 20 years ago. Now we have Kepler, we have Hubble, we are able to observe what is really going on out there, and the numbers are dauntingly huge, infinite numbers, right? I mean, it's just crazy. So that states that it's impossible that we are alone, but then we have abductions and contact by the millions on this planet. And it's two different things. We have contact, and then we have abductions. Let's start with contact, with people that are communicating with or have seen things that are definitely off-world. What do you think is actually happening there? Are we being visited, and have we had contact with literally millions and millions of people?
Well, every time I'm watching some kind of nature documentary and some scientists that have been sitting around in the bushes for months observing some creature with binoculars finally decides to leap out and snatch it up and tag it and all that sort of thing, I think, well, why do we humans have such an egotistical attitude that we think this might not also be happening to us? And in fact, if you want to get sinister about it, you could say that there are no cows on planet Earth that know that people eat cows. And so we're not sure exactly what the agenda might always be. It might purely just be a scientific one. It might be a form of entertainment. I certainly have met some strange people in my day that I thought might be wearing the human suit over top of the reptilian body or whatever.
No doubt.
And,
no doubt.
So I definitely feel that, if these things are zipping around out there and coming into contact with, the random person, that's exactly how they would behave. I mean, they would not behave any differently than we behave toward other animals in the animal kingdom that we know of. And I also, of course, think about how many fish in the black depths of the ocean have no idea that such a thing as humans are way up above. And perhaps once in a while, a fish that's sort of more daring than the rest goes a little higher up and catches a glimpse of some weird lights that look a heck of a lot like we would describe a UFO flying around overhead. And so it's very easy to compare our relationship with the animals that we dominate to how these beings would interact with us and treat us. And that means in some cases they would simply want to observe us. In other cases, they would certainly come and take us and do what they want with us for fun or experimentation. There's nothing we could do about it. And when you come back, who are you gonna call, right? You can't call the police and report that. So you're kind of on your own.
Well, you're absolutely right. I'm a fish, right? I go up to the surface. I see a boat with lights on it. I freak out. I go back and tell my friends and family, you're not going to believe what I just saw. There's a ship up there. Show us. You go back, it's gone. Well, it was right here. Yeah, right. That's exactly what's going on here with us. It's the exact same thing. And they have no idea about New York City. I'm talking about fish. They don't have any idea about the existence of anything else. Their world is water. And to them, that's all there is.
Yeah, and that's also another interesting point that, to them, they probably don't even know that water exists because that's just what they live in.
Right.
And we, for the longest time, didn't even really understand that we were walking around in this gas called air. And we certainly didn't understand that there was this thing called outer space, which is more or less a vacuum up there. So, how many different layers are there of these media within which creatures can live, and they spend 99% of their time in their own medium. And so occasionally when they pop back and forth, which takes effort, these are not consistent experiences. I mean, these are just, like you said, catching the glimpse of the boat, but I might go back out tomorrow night and myself as a human on the beach and not see the boat that I saw there last night sitting off the shore with a fisherman in it.
That's exactly right. And then we have another issue that I find fascinating, which is the Fermi paradox. If there is so much life out there, then how come we're not being visited every single day? Well, I have issues with that, and I think the Fermi paradox is kind of dissolving somewhat. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I can see why that, from a certain standpoint, that makes sense. Because, again, it goes back to Occam's razor, where, a scientist would say, essentially, we have the math to prove that we ought to be visited, so where is everybody? But there are a number of interesting explanations for that. Number one is that they may be here and we just don't realize it. And of course, that's what we're talking about when it comes to this idea of people having contact or some kind of an abduction experience, that we as a whole just don't get to experience that, which is a pretty good thing, I would say, in most cases. On the other hand, you could also say that the infinite span of time in which it takes for a civilization to rise to the point to go out and explore and then decay and disappear. The almost infinite amount of time means that it's very unlikely that two civilizations are going to reach or advance to that point at the same time so that they can interact with each other. So that would indicate that maybe there are aliens out there sometimes, but not right now, and then, of course, you have the idea that there are aliens that are trying to communicate with us every single day, but they're not using radio waves. They're using some other technology that they think should occur to us that does not. There are a number of different possibilities there to look at that from a scientific point of view, but I tend to think that it's most likely, when you consider the absolute just plethora, the spectrum of different types of living creatures that we have on this planet, that there are probably things right under our noses that are alien. And there's been speculation about whether or not, say, mushrooms could be aliens and stuff like that. It's not necessarily coming in the form of the little green man, but this is a consideration that we, again, have such an ego that we are not willing to sit back and look at the possibility that we can't even see what's right in front of us.
Well, there's two things that come to mind with that, and I always look at ourselves first when I seek answers. We have been to Mars. We've been to Venus. We've been to Jupiter. We've been to Saturn. We've just buzzed and photographed Ceres and Pluto, and we now have interstellar craft. But to the best of my knowledge, we don't have humans on those craft, right? But we are certainly sending out robotic probes. Well, that's what ET would do here too, as well. If we discovered an alien intelligence and went to their planet, would we send a human down to the surface first? Probably not. We would send an android version of Joshua P. Warren. That's what we would do. We wouldn't necessarily send you. And I think that is exactly what is going on here. It only makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, and in fact, if you go back to the footage from Puerto Rico,
that's exactly what I was going to bring up. Yes.
Yeah. I was comparing that to all of these ancient sculptures called Sami that look like little Hershey kisses with faces on them that were gods that would fly around. And, I called the discovery of those, along with the footage of Puerto Rico, UFOs, which stands for organic UFOs. But since then, I've thought that I may have been better off to call them AI UFOs, because unfortunately, people just can't wrap their head around the idea of something being organic and not being like them. And so by organic, what I'm saying is that maybe these are probes that possess some kind of conscience and consciousness, that these are, again, what we would probably be best at categorizing as artificial intelligence or AI right now, because that these are craft that don't have a little guy sitting inside the steering wheel, but they still have some kind of independence and some kind of ability to observe and to guide systems and to transfer information back to some other location. And so that may be more of what we happen to see when we get a lot of this stuff, is what we think of as some kind of probe that has an artificial intelligence program within it.
I want to go, I just got this email. Let's back up for a second. Let's go back to the time warp. Could that explain deja vu?
That's an interesting question.
It is.
why not? Why not? We've all experienced that. And it just lasts for a moment, and it's almost an indiscernible moment, because I remember when I was in college, I had a great professor in the philosophy department, and at one point I had to write a paper on time, and I very quickly realized that the biggest problem with time is defining the difference between the past, the present, and the future. Because the only way from a human standpoint to separate the past from the future is to have some kind of a boundary between the two. Well, how big is that boundary?
Right.
How long is that? Is that 1 second? Well, that doesn't make sense, because even 1 second has a beginning and an end. And so you would have a past and a future within your past and future. So all you're doing is kicking the problem down the can. So essentially, we don't know exactly how long the present lasts, especially when it comes to the human experience and human perception. And so, again, 20 microseconds may sound like a very small amount of time, but that may be just enough time for your brain to kick back, a second or two and say, whoa, why do I feel like I've just, seen something that I've seen before? So it could very much be a graceful solution to deja vu.
Yeah, I didn't want to. I don't want to ruin the flow here, but that was such a great question that I had to jump in, because we've all experienced deja vu. In fact, I rather enjoy deja vu. I stop. I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy myself here while this is going down. And there is something. What is really interesting with deja vu for me, Joshua, is everybody says that they've experienced it in some form. It doesn't matter who you are. They've all got their own explanations or interpretations of what is going on. But the fact is, deja vu is real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's and that's also one of those interesting things about the human experience in general. How do we define what's real? Because we're always trying to rely upon some kind of a tool, but and science as we know it has progressed in large part because of the advancement of tools. But we have to remind ourselves that every single tool out there was envisioned by a person, created by a person, built by a person, calibrated by a person, operated by a person, interpreted by a person. You can't take the human element out of it. The human element's really all you've got, whether we like it or not. And so that's why when we have these discussions about reality, we're better off to stick with what we know. And that's not always what you can prove to somebody else, just like I can't prove to you what I dreamed last night. I remember it. It was real to me, but I can't show you that and scientifically demonstrate that for you. But it was a part of my reality. And deja vu is one of those things that, like you said, I would presume everybody can relate to. And so that may be the most basic way of experiencing these time slips.
I used to say when I was a kid, I'm going back to age 12, 13, 14, when I would speak to my friends about deja vu, and especially when it happened, I would say, I feel like somebody has read my book. That's what I used to say as a kid when that went down. And as an adult, I look back at that. That's an innocent way of looking at it, but it seems to me like it's spot on the money. And I can't really explain it any other way. And that's the way I used to relate to it as a child. Somebody has read my book. And now I think about today about how profound that thought was.
Well, and I pay attention when I'm somewhere and somebody says out of the blue, oh, I just had deja vu. I mean, in fact, Lauren and I, my wife and I were at a restaurant just recently for the first time, and the bartender came up to service, and the very first thing she said was, whoa, deja vu. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. That's the first thing out of this lady's mouth. And then throughout the rest of the day, all of these very unusual sort of synchronistic and serendipitous things began to happen to us. And I said, okay, this is one of those days where you get to see the connections form right in front of you.
I love it when it happens. A couple of months ago, Rita and I, my wife, we went through a few days of strangeness. Just weird things just happening left and right. And she walks out onto the patio and she goes, what'd you say? I said, deja vu. I'm going through it. and she just stopped me and she's like staring out and she's like enjoying the moment. And it was like 3 days of that. You're absolutely right. And you need to really stop and take note. Don't play around with it. Try to figure out exactly what the universe is trying to tell you.
And maybe that is, again, an example of just having one of these quick encounters with these time warps, but sometimes they last longer than that. And when they last longer than that, that's when you get to see the really good stuff. That's when you get to look into the past and see something that happened long ago, or maybe just see yourself from a minute ago. It may have to do with the duration of this time slip that you happen to be encountering.
Now, let's go. You mentioned dreams a minute ago, and dreams and abductions seem to go hand in hand. Now, we look at some of the famous cases. Of course, Travis Walton comes to mind, and Travis just went through some stuff over in England. He's back here in the States. Travis, if you're listening, we're with you, man, and I'm going to give you a call. Now, back to, like Travis, well-documented case, eyewitnesses, certainly polygraph test, and a lot of things that went on to confirm his abduction. But then we have all of the other abduction cases. Again, the numbers are mind-boggling when we talk about this. Is there? I think there's two things going on. I'd like your answer on each one. One, that these abductions are real. Two, they could be something more sinister and maybe reenactments that are going on to implant memories. I'm talking about military in my lab situations, because the military seems to be present at some of these abduction experiences. What do you think is going on when we're talking about abductions, separate from, contact?
Mm-hmm. Well, for one thing, when it comes to the real stuff, the real encounters, we have to first off look at the physicality of the entire scenario, because going back to us humans being so egocentric, we take for granted that just because that we have a physical body that we can look at in the mirror, that is actually the bulk of us. But in fact, physicality is an illusion. That's what the relationship between matter and energy tells us, that essentially two things are physical to each other if they resonate within a similar vibration. That's a very simple way of putting it.
Right.
And if they resonate at a dissimilar vibration, they are not physical to each other, which is why, right now a radio wave will pass through you like a ghost. But if you were made of radio waves, then you would encounter a radio wave like an impenetrable wall. And then you have some of those waves out there that are just physical enough. They will interact just enough with the physical world, like microwaves, that they can cause enough friction to heat up your baked potato. So you have all these different levels of physicality, and it may be that many of these encounters and abductions do take place on what you might call an astral or a non-physical plane. And so that's why people often have these dream experiences that they have trouble distinguishing from some kind of an abduction encounter. They wake up the next day and they're like, I had the most realistic dream of my life. And look, I've got these marks on me and my T-shirt's torn and all that. And so it could be that most people, when they get abducted, do not get abducted on the physical plane. This would also explain why that you get beamed through physical objects like your ceiling and the roof of your house. And if these beings, whether they are extraterrestrial or interdimensional or both, have the ability to understand the way our world works well enough to travel the way they can travel and conduct themselves the way they conduct themselves, then we must consider they have to understand the relationship between matter and energy and physicality, and they might be able to appear in different states. And so you might have, the typical, sure enough, the cow gets, sucked up into the UFO and mutilated or something like that. But it may be much more common for people to have most of their experience occur in an astral, non-physical way. Now, when it comes to the second type, which of course gets into government conspiracy and military action, I am immediately reminded of how during World War II, the Allies went out and hired magicians from Las Vegas and special effects technicians from Hollywood to come together and create illusions, which played an enormous role in helping the Allies win the war. I mean, there were entire factories that were saved from destruction. These were munitions factories because they were able to make it disappear from the air and then recreate it in another location. So the wrong location got bombed. There are many examples of this, and this is well historically documented. And so we know that that was an effective component of the psychological warfare long ago in World War II. So why would that work not continue to this day, but utilizing the more advanced technological options? So you've got now lasers and holograms and holographs and all of these abilities to fool someone into believing what you want them to believe. And I think that can be especially effective if you're dealing with an enemy like we often have in the Middle East that says, look, I'm doing this for Allah, I'm doing this for a supernatural being, and I will die for this. So there's nothing you can do to stop me. Well, what if they could create a technology that makes Allah appear out in the middle of the desert and tell them, no, not today. I mean, that might be the kind of thing that would actually work when nothing else would, if you're able to take advantage of what people believe, whether we're talking about their religious beliefs or ghosts or UFOs or cryptids, and use that technique in order to not only manipulate them, but also to sort of make somebody look a little bit more or less like a crank if somebody report something publicly.
Well, that's the best way to do it, right? I mean, you use a little disinfo. The rest of us are crazy. See, we told you so.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's the most effortless way. And you could also argue very effectively that that's the most humane way to control the public and to conduct warfare. I can very easily see somebody at the Pentagon saying, well, look, we could continue wasting all of these lives and all of this armament and et cetera, or we could just create this technology that gives this illusion and makes them think in a different way, and we don't have to confront them head on with brute force.
An amazing way to look at it. And when we come back, I want to talk about recent sightings. We're going to do that. But also, I want to go back to this interdimensional parallel world aspect to abductions. I find that fascinating. I want more info. Our guest tonight is Joshua P. Warren. Happy UFO Day. I'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
What can I say about the most popular tea on the internet? And what do customers say about Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com? A lot. But by federal law, we at GetTheTea.com cannot make claims to how this product can enhance your health. We cannot even post our testimonies without being in compliance. So how do we get past the hump? Try our products at GetTheTea.com and see for yourself. You can send us a testimony, but we just can't post it. Bummer. Our products are GMO-free and organic. We pride ourselves in being the best we can be, and we urge you to take charge of your health. We're 11 years strong, and many of our customers have shared their successes with friends and family. Protect your colon. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Joshua P. Warren, on this World UFO Day. Man, he's had a busy week this week, and I gotta thank him one more time for finding the time to come in and hang out with us on this very important day. And this segment of Fade to Black is brought to you by Bearing Optics and makers of night vision goggles, and it's what we use here too as well. And I want to just go to the banners at jimmychurchradio.com and get yourself a pair of those Generation 3s. Joshua, the interdimensional parallel world time slip aspect of all of this is fascinating, and it takes me back to a very famous case and book. It's called the Mojave Incident. And that book and that couple that went through that not only was here with me on Fade to Black a couple of times and over at Coast to Coast. When you hear the two of them recount their story together, I don't think that there's any doubt that they went through this and the incident happened. But we're talking about a large craft. We're talking about abduction. Thousands of beings that came down into the Mojave Desert that night with red eyes that they had seen, but yet it wasn't witnessed by anybody at the campground, you know, that was just a few miles up the road. But the incident happened. Could this, parallel world aspect come into play here where they were taken to everything happened, but just in another dimension?
Well, yeah, especially if you consider that right now the best mathematicians in the world are telling us that there are at least 10 or 11 other dimensions. And we really can't comprehend exactly what that means. It's hard enough for us, again, to figure out what time is, and time is just something that fuses the first three dimensions together and tries to explain how that they advance or progress. But I think the best way to wrap our brains around interdimensional activity is to, interestingly enough, go back to the Victorian English author named Edwin Abbott, who wrote a very interesting book called Flatland, in which he imagined a world that consists solely of two-dimensional beings, where every single thing is flat. So in other words, their whole world you could envision as like a big flat piece of cardboard, ignoring the fact that even a piece of cardboard has a little height and whatnot. But anyway, flat, and then they themselves are like circles that are just sliding around inside Flatland, completely oblivious to anything like height or up or down, as in a third dimension. So if we were to be three-dimensional beings looking down on Flatland from this direction called up, that they are oblivious to, and we were to say, "Hey, little Flatlander, how you doing?" that person would just hear a disembodied voice that would suddenly come from nowhere, and it would be pretty freaky. Now, you also, from that point of view, would be able to see inside their houses with sort of an X-ray vision, and therefore you'd be able to describe for them information about their surroundings that they could not explain. But if you got really engaged and you decided to go down into Flatland and visit their world, from a Flatlander's point of view, all that individual would see is a series of objects appearing as slices, because this object could not be seen in its entirety with all three dimensions. And so you have this sort of series or set of objects that appears in midair. And lastly, if you were to reach down into Flatland and pick up a Flatlander and toss him or her in the air, and the person came floating down back at the Flatland, freaked out, they would have no way of explaining this experience to their friends other than to say this was some kind of a mystical encounter. And so what I mean by this example is that all these things I described that a two-dimensional being would experience if he or she came into contact with a three-dimensional being sounds eerily like the things that we describe when we come into contact with some of these other beings that may have an interdimensional capacity. And so it could be that if these beings are entering our dimension from a higher dimension, a fifth dimension, sixth dimension, seventh dimension, eighth dimension, etc., then certain individuals might have a very limited point of view in which to observe this and appreciate it, but the rest of us would not. And so there are all those variables that we have to consider when we wrap our minds around interdimensional encounters.
Well, and E.T., 10,000 years more advanced, a million more years, a billion, would certainly understand dimensions and how to dance in and out of them.
Yeah, but one would imagine that, if you're going to make the trip here, you must understand a lot about that. And so that's why sometimes you almost want to just throw up your hands and say, look, I'm never going to understand all this because it's so advanced that it's impossible for me to understand it. And that may also be one of the reasons that, disclosure is not more of a priority, because, I bet you a lot of these folks who were with the military who have these firsthand encounters, they say, look, we don't know what's going on that much more than anybody else. And so this, it produces a conundrum where you ask yourself, like, how efficient is it for us to invest resources in this thing that we're probably never really going to be able to understand anyway?
Yeah, we have to look at it in those terms, in that E.T. getting here, they don't know whether it's 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or today, and they're visiting all the time. I understand that. But they don't know what level of intelligence we have necessarily, or what we would understand necessarily, to what is very simple for them. Like with us, language and riding a bike and laughing, comedy are very simple things for us, but we can't convey that to our closest relatives like a chimpanzee. They don't get it, right? And it would be the same thing with E.T. The very basics for them are way beyond our understanding.
Yes, and going back to that example with the animal kingdom, I wrote a book one time called Pet Ghost, Animal Encounters from Beyond the Grave, which got into all kinds of animals other than just pets. But the reason I bring this up is that, I was talking about how most human beings would say, well, I am smarter than a shark. But if I throw you in the water with a shark, how much does that really matter?
Not much.
Yeah. So the shark, who you can judge who's smarter here, but the shark, I believe, is going to probably have the better hand up in that. And so, again, this goes back to us thinking of ourselves so highly without realizing that maybe all of the animals around us are far more intelligent than we realize, but just they are intelligent within a particular range. And we're intelligent within a particular range, and we get very arrogant about that.
I want to spend this last few minutes with you talking about night vision. One of the life-changing moments for me, one of my epiphanies, was that first night out there doing a sky watch with night vision, and it caused me, after that moment, I always look to the stars. But now I look to the stars differently, knowing that there's crap flying around up there that I just can't see, right, without the night vision. Every moment of every night of everything, there is stuff going on up there that I can't see with my eyes. Frightening on one side, but on the other side, it answers a lot of questions for me. What do you think is what is it that we are seeing? You touched upon it earlier. Some of it could be us in military, and I agree with that. Some of it could be satellites. There's other stuff that you see with night vision that is absolutely not of this earth.
Well, my most profound night vision experience happened probably about 10 years ago. In the desert outside of Laughlin, Nevada, where it's much darker at night. And I'll never forget seeing that sky for the first time through third generation night vision. I mean, it was just like for every star that was visible to my naked eyes, there were about 20 or 30, that were visible through the night vision. And so for one thing, the heavens are just bejeweled, and there's an incredible amount of clarity there. And I was out there with 3 friends, so there was a total of 4 of us, and 3 of us had the third gen night vision goggles. And this was about 9:30 at night. At one point, I looked over toward the east, and what I saw in the sky looked so bizarre that at first I thought that my goggles were malfunctioning, that there was some kind of a digital artifact that had appeared in my goggles, because what I saw was a gigantic V shape, not a triangle, but a huge V shape. It looked like the hand of God had just taken a big highlighter and drawn a huge V that extended from one side of the horizon to the other, with a smaller V shape over top of it. And it was gliding very, very silently from right to left. And I said to the other guys, I said, I think there's something wrong with my goggles. Right. I'm seeing this weird V shape. And then I hear this chorus of holy, when everybody turns their goggles, and I realize, no, we're all seeing this. This was the largest thing that I have ever seen in the sky. And, the sky is pretty darn big out here in the desert in Nevada.
Right.
And this thing, it started again at pretty much one side of the horizon to my right, and it took it probably a few minutes to go right across in front of us, over our heads to the left, and disappear without so much as a sound, not a flashing light, nothing like that. I'll never forget feeling so small in my life, like some kind of caveman, staring up at this thing as it went over. Unfortunately, we did not have any kind of recording devices hooked up to the goggles, and we've been kicking ourselves for that ever since, because I've never seen that same thing again, going back to what we were talking about earlier. But we were so pumped by this that we stayed up the rest of the night. We couldn't sleep, just talking about what we'd seen over and over and over again. And the next day, I got on the horn. I started calling everybody I could think of, asking for possible explanations. Could this have been some kind of, migrating fowl, formation flying fowl, or could this be some kind of military operation? And nobody I talked to had any idea what it was. They said that it was the wrong time of year for any type of formation of birds or anything, and it didn't look like that anyhow, because I've since seen them in night vision. So I feel that what I saw could have been something man-made, but if so, it was the biggest, most incredible, impressive man-made object I've ever seen.
Do you have any idea on the size of it? And you can answer that quickly, but what did you see without the night vision as it went over?
Well, I couldn't see anything with my naked eyes.
Right.
Yeah. So it was only visible within the infrared realm that the night vision goggles allow you to see.
Wow.
So that also tells you something about it. And we know that 9 times out of 10, aircraft, especially something of that size, has got to have some kind of beacon or flashing, warning system on it to alert other aircraft. So that was a life-changing moment for me. And,
what was the size?
Every time I go out, I look for that same thing.
I know you do.
Yeah.
How big was it?
Well, that's the problem when you're looking at things like that. What I can tell you is, from my point of view, it took up the entire sky. But I have no honest way of gauging that, because, at night when you're looking at something through some goggles, there's nothing else in the sky that you can really compare it to. So I don't know, to be honest with you, but it was certainly a behemoth. And
it certainly parallels what was seen over Phoenix.
It's very similar to that. The Phoenix lights appeared instead to be sort of a series of lights that were in a V-shaped or triangular kind of formation.
Right.
And this didn't seem to be a series of dots that I was mentally connecting. This actually seemed to be a linear V-shape.
Man, that is crazy. What a great sighting, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was immediately, for me, a hook for night vision, because I think that was the first time I'd really gone out in the field and looked at the sky at night through night vision. And so since then, I've done it many times, and it's a staple of my kit when I go out at night. And now I've got my camera hooked up, so next time, hopefully, I'll be better prepared for it.
Now, I will tell you. I'll tell you off of the air, but we have a really cool development coming with the Jimmy Church version of night vision, and it'll be released in about a month. That will. You're going to love it. I'll tell you more about that later. I can't do it now because I don't want to tip anybody else out on, I don't want any other manufacturers. It is so cool. And I'll tell you about that later. Now, my thing is this. When I go out with and do sky watches and I'm using night vision, there are those out there that are listening to you and I right now, Joshua, that have never done it. They don't quite have a grasp or a concept of what we are talking about. And I'm sure that most are thinking that it's easily explainable. Well, you see stuff in night vision that is moving out there, some of it low, some of it high, but it's way beyond what we normally see with our own eyes. During the day, aircraft, helicopters, planes, they all fly in a certain fashion, satellites. And then you see these things in night vision that don't make any sense. Either, Joshua, it's ET, or the government has crazy technology that they are not telling us about. both situations to me are equally frightening, but there isn't a gray area, is there?
No. When you see something like that, yeah, you know that it's one or the other, and possibly a combination of both. And so, if something like that, what I saw was flying out in the middle of nowhere over the Nevada desert, then and it was fairly close to Earth. At least I can tell you that, because I was able to look up and see it very well. It does go back to this idea that maybe that's the kind of stuff that the Space Force is dealing with.
Right.
That things like that are flying around up there in space. And, anytime you start trying to question the history of NASA, you get very vicious people who come out of the woodworks and start attacking you. And in many cases, they seem to be very unreasonable, even though they proclaim to be scientists and skeptics and all that. And so sometimes you almost feel like that there always has been some force of people out there who are protecting the secrets that may be related to what we're up to in space.
The V that you saw, were you able to see anything about it? Any edges? Was it flat on the edges? Was there, were any windows? Anything? Was there anything that you can describe?
No, there was nothing of any greater detail than those two big black lines. Or actually, they were not black. They were through their night vision, they were glowing green, but these two big green lines against the black sky with the smaller green lines above it. So, I've talked to people who've said that they've seen what looks like a triangle, because when they look up, the object blots out the stars. What I saw didn't appear to actually blot out the stars. So it may not have been something that had some solid material in the middle. It may have just been a craft that was in and of itself a giant wing.
Wait a minute here. That's interesting. Are you saying as it passed by, it didn't block out the stars in back of it, that you could still see the stars through the craft?
That's right. And of course, there are people who have wondered if this could also be the product of some kind of invisibility cloak, which is certainly not hard to understand. Even we have aircraft that will produce an invisibility cloak by taking images from the top of the craft and projecting them to the bottom.
Right.
And then of course, with the USS Nimitz report that came out, they talked about seeing this craft go invisible at various times, and they could tell it was there because it was still producing some kind of disruption on the water below, but optically it would disappear from their vantage point. And so either I could have been looking at a giant craft that was mainly cloaked, so that it looked to be sort of more or less invisible, especially to the naked eye, or it could simply be that the craft itself was a huge V shape.
That's a pretty incredible sighting. That's wow. And your friends, you had 3 friends. Were your friends skeptics? What were they, UFO enthusiasts, and how did it change them?
Well, they were certainly interested in UFOs, but at that time we were all sort of learning together whether or not there was something to this.
Right.
That was right around the time when people were starting to get out and try this more frequently. And so we were reserving judgment, but at that time, we'd all seen odd little lights darting around in the sky right after sunset and that kind of thing. But as far as I know, none of us have ever seen before nor since anything like that flying over. And so that was a life-altering moment for all of us.
Now, one last question before I let you go. Let's go back to the time warp. Did you feel anything? Did you feel physically any different when you measured the 20 microseconds?
No, I didn't feel any different. My wife didn't feel any different. If anything, I was just focused on looking at the meter. Who knows, maybe if I could go back and do it over again, I would look up at my surroundings and see if something appeared to change or distort a little bit. But we were videotaping and we didn't capture anything like that. So, I feel like that if we are encountering these sorts of flickering, waving sort of time anomalies on a pretty regular basis, then we're not at all aware of it. It's unless you have something like the deja vu experience or something more extreme, like that you're looking back in time, but that doesn't happen very often.
Is Heath going to sell the DT meter?
Yes. Ronald Heath already has at least 2 or 3 of them on eBay. And so if you go to, I think his website is just dtmeter.com. I don't remember if there's a hyphen in there or not. Or if you just go to joshuapwarren.com and click the link at the top, then you'll see all kinds of interesting supplementary links there to the material that I put together in my presentation. You'll be able to see a direct link to the UFO footage and to his meter where you can read all about it and send him questions. But I hope that people all over the world will start taking the initiative to do what I just did. I have no vested interest in him selling this. I have never discussed any kind of an arrangement. I don't get a cut of it. There's never been anything like that. So I'm not saying this is some kind of a marketing effort.
No, I want to buy one. Is where I'm going with this. Okay, I'm here. There it is. Yes, it is dtmeter.com. And the Las Vegas video UFO footage is there too as well. Everybody, right at the top, just click on Joshua's links over at jimmychurchradio.com. It's joshuapwarren.com. And at the top of the page, it's how do you update? How do you have it worded?
You refresh your browser or something, and you'll click the link at the top.
Yeah,
on the homepage.
It was right there. But anyway, joshuapwarren.com. I got to it somehow because I'm actually on the page here as well. And down at the bottom is dtmeter.com. Thank you so much, Joshua. Busy day for you, and I can only imagine what the days and weeks ahead are going to be for you. But congratulations. An absolutely stunning discovery. Thank you so much.
Well, I could not be more delighted that my voice somehow held out. So it's always a pleasure talking with you, Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me on the show this special day, and we'll keep each other updated on our mutual progress.
Thank you so much, Joshua. Be safe out there, my friend.
Okay, you too.
Joshua P. Warren. Just go to joshuapwarren.com, and all the links are right there. Absolutely fascinating video that goes along with the article, too, as well. Happy World UFO Day, everybody. Joshua P. Warren, joshuapwarren.com. I'm going to open up the phone lines and talk to all of you next. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with me.
And you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too.
Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Tappy. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at naturesyouth.com. naturesyouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at naturesyouth.com. That's naturesyouth.com.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JamieChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Open lines right now, 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. I've opened up the phone lines. Oh, man. Rivermoon Coffee. What a great conversation with Joshua on this World UFO Day. So many things to talk about here. So, you know, and talking about night vision, that sighting that he had, that's pretty amazing. And it didn't repeat. I find that so interesting. The things that I have seen with night vision, some are similar, some are different, but I don't think I've seen the same thing twice. And I find that very, very compelling through my own experience as well. And the Fermi paradox part of the conversation, I do want to discuss this with all of you. What are your thoughts on the Fermi paradox? Because there are, which is this? The Fermi paradox is very simple. Given the math, given what we know today about the amount of suns and planets in our stars in our own galaxy, and how large those numbers are, potentially we are talking about, billions of planets. And you start to break that down, and the amount of life and intelligent civilizations that should be out there is incredible. So why aren't they here? Okay, now the answers to that are, well, of course, they are here. And then it goes back further and further, and you can peel back many layers here, because every question that you ask, there are multiple answers. One of the ways to look at this is a very simple one. The intelligence out there, the cultures, the civilizations that are occupying all of these planets, of course they know that we are here. The way that they probably communicate with each other, as they have discovered others, right? And then the first question, one intelligent alien race would have for another one is, hey, who else have you made contact with? Well, there's another planet over here. There's something else going on over here. Great, right? And they go, and now they've got this way of communicating with each other that they understand. And it could be, one, at the speed of light, that communication. Two, it could be faster than the speed of light. Again, this is technology that we simply don't understand here. The other part of it is, and they are all well aware of what's going on here on this planet and our level of intelligence. And the other part, again, this gets very complex very quick, and we can continue to ask questions and try to figure out those answers, is this. We have not visited another star. We have not done that yet. And they understand that. Of course they would. We're not part of that culture that is going on out there. And it has to exist that way. Right now, and then there is something very simple. Speech. We talk with our mouths. Okay? We talk with our mouths. Another advanced civilization out there, would they speak verbally? Right? Probably not, I would think. So the concept of that type of communication is very, very primitive to them. Maybe they did it once at one point, but I'm not so sure that us here, humans, in 10,000 years are going to use speech. Would we use speech? Would we laugh? I don't think that we would. Right? So now E.T. is here in front of you, and you expect them to open their mouths and talk? I'm not sure that they would have that capability. Right? So going back to the Fermi paradox, why aren't they communicating with us? That's one reason. And another reason, which again is very simple in its concept. We, through conventional ways, analog ways, used radio waves for television broadcasts and radio broadcasts around this planet, and that's what has been beamed out there at the speed of light, right? Very weak signals, but they're there, and they're there for people to, other cultures to pick up if they know what they're listening for or searching for. To them, that type of technology is ancient. Today on this planet, we still use it, but we use it less and less and less and less. Right? We've got microwaves, we've got satellite transmissions, and we have DirecTV, and we have the internet, and that's a different way of beaming our news and entertainment around this planet. It's not necessarily, although we still use radio, but certainly television signals are less and less and less and less and less and less. So less of that is being broadcast out. And so my point being that we have only used that technology for a very short period of time, less than 100 years. Or 100 years. Okay, so give it $120. That's it. And going back out to E.T., out there, E.T. Now, listen to how I'm trying to explain this. If E.T. is 1,000 light years away and they were beaming 1,000 years ago with radio waves, well, today, right? And so the other 900 light years would be with a different technology. Think about that for a second. And if you stretch it out to 1 billion years, 1 billion light years, and they've 990 million years of that, certainly light years of that, we would have missed it because we weren't around that long ago, and it wouldn't be here to us yet. So the Fermi paradox kind of goes out the window. The more that you look at each one of these, I can sit here and break down every single one of these questions and answer why we haven't heard anything yet. And today, the technology, now that we have the ability to listen and we have the ability to scan the universe and outside of our own galaxy, that we are looking for things that probably aren't used. And the things that we are able to listen for haven't been used for a very long time. On the ET side of things. So you have to think about when it comes to the Fermi paradox and how we look at this, I'm not so sure that it actually applies. Because I know what I've seen in the skies. I know that we're being visited. I know that there are things here. I know this as a fact. I don't need any proof of that. But there's some of the answers. Some of the answers. It gets so deep. All right, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, this is Karen from Seattle.
Hi, Karen from Seattle. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you?
It's Happy World UFO Day.
Isn't that a lovely day to have?
It's a lovely day to have. And what a great conversation with Joshua tonight. Amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty astounding.
What's on your mind?
Well, I was, just the whole conversation and the Fermi paradox. I was just thinking about, imagine if you're a little kid and you're growing up in the middle of the Sahara Desert, right? You're a Bedouin. And somebody tells you about these fish at the bottom of the ocean that have these huge teeth and they have a glowing worm on their nose.
Right.
Are you going to be able to understand that? It doesn't mean that it's not real. You're just not in a place, you're not in a culture that can grasp that kind of other environment world.
If you haven't experienced it, you wouldn't have any way of even dealing with it. Mostly you'd be like, what, a fish? Because you're surrounded by sand dunes and you're eating goat. You don't know from fish. There are reports. Rita and I were talking about this last week. When the Mayans had first seen the Spanish ships, right, sitting off in the distance before they came to shore, that they actually, although the ships were there, they didn't see them. They were there.
Their brains couldn't process
it.
They were seeing it.
They could not process it. They did not, although they were there, and it took like 3 days, right, until they even started to, and then the brain started to process, right, and I can't imagine going through that kind of heart attack, right? To see something that you've never. So yeah, I am sure that your system and your brain would go through that kind of shock where that's it. They, although the ships are there, physically there, they are not there.
Right. And I'm just gonna toss a Bible at you here. I'm not going to get into a religious discussion. Just going to give you an example.
Bring it.
In the Old Testament, Elisha's walking through the desert. He's in trouble with the locals, as per usual. He's got an assistant with him. The assistant's freaking out because they're about to get killed from these guys that are following them. And Elisha prays, and he said, God, open his eyes so that he might see. And this huge vista opens before him with all these, he calls them angelic beings, but whatever, clad in gold, chariots of fire, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands. And then the vision goes away. And the assistant turns to Elisha and goes, yeah, we good. We're good. They're going to fight for us. We're good. So we don't have the mental capacity right now. Our brains are not trained to see through all the other realities that are in there, to see the big picture, as it were. We can't see it. We can't grasp it.
Have you used night vision yet?
No. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, you just wait. It goes back to everything that we're talking about right now. And I'm serious. When I go outside at night now, my head is on a swivel. It is. I mean, I'm just just imagining what is actually going on. I'm so disappointed in Los Angeles in that I've seen a couple of things here in L.A. I have. But by and large, we have no stars, right? It's all this light pollution. You look up and you go, 50, 70 miles, 100 miles outside of Los Angeles to Joshua Tree, where there's no light pollution. And you look up and you see the Milky Way, and you see the multicolors. You see the reds and the blues and the crazy 3D beautiful experience that is going on, up in the skies. And here in L.A., got like 2 or 3 stars. And I know it's the same.
You can't see anything.
No,
you can't see anything.
It's the same exact sky, Karen. It's the same sky. But now my head is on a swivel because you go out there with night vision, and I can guarantee anybody, go out with night vision one time, go out and look up, and you will see something. And pull the night vision down and look, and it's not there. And in some cases, it's even low. It's not up really high. And then pull the night vision down and look, and it's simply not there. I love it. So you just wait, and it goes right back to what we're talking about with the Mayans or Elijah out there in the desert. Right? You just. It's a life-changing thing to go through. I can't wait for you to do it for the first time. Are you going to Soul Tech?
Oh yeah, I'm registered. I'm got my camping spot. I'm ready to go.
You wait. I've said it so many times, Karen. There are no guarantees. Be careful when you make a guarantee. Well, I'm guaranteeing. That's a guarantee. That's where you want to take your friend, your loved one, your family member that's a skeptic or on the fence. That's what you want to do. Just take them there. Something's going to happen, and you're going to get the last laugh. You're going to enjoy.
Well, here's the great thing. Everybody in my family has seen something. We saw them all together twice. We were all together and saw stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. And that you got to do that together. We were talking earlier, and I've got calls on hold. You know what? Forget them. I'm talking to you.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. I know, right? I want to go back to this whole time warp thing. There is, and I'm so happy that Joshua was able to capture this. And I'm serious. I'm gonna get one of these DT meters. But we all know that there's something going on with this. There's just weirdness, like deja vu and other things. But there is a movie out that I watched last night with Rita called The Endless. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, write that down. The Endless. Okay, now I'm looking at it here. I just looked it up. On Rotten Tomatoes, 97%. That you don't get that on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't care who you are, right?
Wow.
97%. Now, it's exactly what, pretty much, exactly what Joshua P. Warren is talking about, what he experienced out there in the desert. I don't want to give the movie away, but it involves time slips. And the way that the movie is shot, independent film, the directors, Justin and Aaron, who play themselves in the movie, by the way, very clever. They play Justin and Aaron. Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead are two of the most gifted. I think Aaron wrote the film. Two of the most gifted directors out there. And this movie is so well written, and how it deals with anomalies on the ground where you are walking and how things can change. Right? That's it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm only going that far. I don't want to ruin this for anybody out there. But it is so clever, so well written, so well shot, and so well acted by everybody in it that it's something that you can experience and not go, oh man, it's amateur shot, it's amateur written, it's cool, it's clever, but no, it's got everything in it that will just keep you from the beginning to the end. It's well shot, it's well written, it's well edited, it's clever. It's clever. You need to see it. It's called The Endless. I think it was released yesterday on the 1st, if I'm not mistaken. Did you write it?
I'm going to go look it up and find it.
The Endless.
And watch it.
It's really, really, really cool. All right, Karen, that's all I got. Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you so much. The Endless, okay? Now, tomorrow on the show, I expect everybody listening to start posting in Twitter about how great that movie is. Thank you, Karen. Enjoy the rest of your World UFO Day.
I will. You too. Bye-bye.
Great phone call right there. Karen up in Seattle. Let me get back over here to Twitter. Yes, okay, everybody's posting this now. The Endless. This is a movie you have got to see. 100% back to front. Rita was so funny last night. She goes, I know what you're going to talk about tomorrow on the show. Well, I saved it till the end. This movie's incredible. I don't want to give it away. Okay. I'm just going to say that much. It deals with time slips. And in fact, that may not even be the right way to put it. It's really, really cool. How do I want to say this? When I look at a film, and it doesn't matter if it's a comedy, dramatic, science fiction, it doesn't matter, documentary, it doesn't really matter for me. My tastes are so high and my expectations, I will stop a film in 2 minutes and move on to the next one if it's not cinematically correct. Okay? Gigi said, speaking of films you've recommended, I watched Annihilation, and man, what an interesting film. Yeah, that's really cool. Corby Wace just said, I just bought a DT meter, differential time rate meter. There are only a very small limit. All right, Corby, when are we going to the desert, my friend? We got to test that. Thank you so much, Corby. I can't wait. I'm glad you're listening to the show, too, as well. It's Corby Waste of NASA. Yeah. I can't wait till what your friends and coworkers say about that, Corby. But we've got to take that thing out to the desert and go and test. Now, back to what I expect from a film. I've only got a couple of minutes. If it isn't visually stunning immediately out of the gate, I can't focus. It won't have my attention. Second, and that's the cinematography. Second, I can tell right away with the edits if it's artistic or not. And I can't last for 2 hours on a film if it doesn't have those two things. And then next, I will know immediately out of the gate if the script is written correctly. I mean, written. Okay, I don't expect. No, it just needs to be cleverly written. And I'll know that out of the gate. And the next thing is the acting. I don't care who the actors are. They don't have to be Hollywood's elite. You just have to act correctly. And I will know in a few first short minutes of the film if it has all of those elements. The Endless is 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. It is that great. It's a great film. Great film. Highly, highly recommended. And that's all I'm going to say. The Endless. You need to check it out. And I would expect that everybody listening to me right now is going to go and check the film out. Okay, so go and do it. I want all of your comments. We're not going to have a Fader night this week. We will next week. But I will be able to take your calls, and I want to hear what everybody has to say and how they're going to react to this film. It is absolutely amazing. Okay? Well, that's it. Now, happy World UFO Day, everybody. Joshua P. Warren, joshuapwarren.com is the website. The articles and all of the coverage from Fox and Fox News are over at joshuapwarren.com. The video that was shot is there, too, as well, the highway UFO video, and all of the information about the DT meter. I was watching some of the comments here, and certainly from Mark out in Australia about how small and insignificant 20 microseconds is. There's no question about that. The fact that it was measured is a big, big deal because there shouldn't be anything at all. And to have it go on right there outside of Rachel, Nevada and Area 51 with everything else that we know about what goes on up there in the desert. Okay, and now Corby's got himself a DT meter. He is now the most popular kid in school. I cannot wait to go out and check that out and put it to the test. For everybody else out there that's listening to me, Bearing Optics, you need to get yourself some night vision goggles. Click on the banner over at jimmychurchradio.com. Go and visit Bearing Optics. Speak to Alec Hoffman. He is a Fadernaut. If you are on the fence, you've been thinking about it, you need the advice, you need to know what to do, speak to Alec Hoffman at Bearing Optics. All of the information for that is over at jimmychurchradio.com. You're going up to ESETI. You want to have your night vision with you on that night. Okay? It is the only way to go. With that, tomorrow night on the show, Michael Lee Hill is here. There are some inky crop circles that have surfaced. If you go to michaelleehill.net, he wrote up an article about it. We will be discussing all of this tomorrow night on the show. The photographs are amazing. What is his analysis? We're going to discuss all of that tomorrow night right here on Fade to Black. Fade to Black's executive producers Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music Doug Aldrich. Intro Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill right here. I want everybody to be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.